the digital world is going to be insanely powerful when these kids of today growing up from Roblox to Fortnites of the world to the Web3 games that eventually become seamless experiences and fun, these kids will really, really desire to own assets and not necessarily make money from them. Play to earn is great. Well, there's elements to that, but I think the thesis and the narrative is changing very fast about that should not be your most important goal.
None of the information in this podcast constitutes investment advice or an offer, recommendation, or solicitation by Wagby Ventures or any of its affiliates to buy or sell any securities.
Hey everyone, thank you for listening in. It's Benga here with another Wagby Ventures podcast episode. Today I'm joined by Ammar Zaeem. He's the CEO, co-founder of Revolving Games. Revolving Games is a Web3 company focused on developing blockchain-based decentralized games that integrate cryptocurrencies and non-fungible tokens, NFTs, to create play-to-earn experiences, emphasizing player-owned economies and decentralized ecosystems. For anyone who is new, this is the Wagby Ventures podcast, where we do snapshots with interesting builders, founders, and investors across crypto and AI. Check out wagbyventures.io to learn more about the syndicate behind the podcast. All right, I'm really super excited to get into it with Ammar. Welcome to the show, Ammar.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's a pleasure to get to know more about WAGMI and your community.
Awesome. Yeah. So tell us all about your crypto journey before we go into the project.
I actually love talking about my journey because it ties in very well with where we are and how we got here. But even before crypto, I think one of the unique things is that I started my first company in 1997. So I'm 40. So I'd say I had the luck to be early when I was 12 to get a special internet line to essentially have a lot of fun on the internet. But my dad forced me to essentially build something first in order to get free internet access. So he made us work on it, and it was great because we started a website development business, which kind of selling door to door saying, hey, yeah, websites are essential. It's like the new business card. Anyway, we made $600 that summer. That kind of inspired me to be in tech, but I didn't know I was going to be. I was sent back to school. Fast forward, my grandfather was a mathematician. My great-grandfather, technically. And he, I don't know, maybe it's in the genetics. Some numbers was something I was obsessed with. And I got into the financial markets, dropping out of college, starting a small fund with a friend of mine. And we managed a decent amount of money. But then 2008 happened soon after. So it was months after. That was the first financial crisis I saw. And it was pretty brutal because it caused a global recession. Anyway, so I took a step back, started looking into various things. And my brother at that point was working at a startup, which he wanted to invest in and scale. But he realized, we could, now that I'm available as well, we could do it together. And we ended up doing that. And we started our first gaming company in 2010. Having said that, we had a great journey. We initially bootstrapped ourselves, worked on some incredible titles like Fruit Ninja, Zen's Ambitions for EA, and a bunch of others, partnered, co-developed games with some of the top-tier gaming companies today, including Scopely, which is really well known. We also partner with Kabam, both being unicorns, starting out even smaller than us at the time. And then we also work, like I mentioned, EA, some of the top brands. But one thing we missed out, and just one step back, we sold the company in 16, 17, and I missed out on one thing, building this company out and doing financially really well because it was completely bootstrapped and our revenue and profitability was very strong. But we never built an IP. And at the time, we realized that is the real deal. We got comfortable too soon we didn't have a chance in Web 2 because building IP is like saying, I'm going to build Disney. It's not that easy. And soon, like 2 years, I was in San Francisco looking into what I want to do next. Is it going to be gaming or what? And we saw this opportunity of ownership around blockchain with what Ethereum and some of the other blockchains were building. And that was like a moment where we said, okay, this is going to be big. And Revolving Games had already started by 2019. And I have a few funny stories around this. One is that's not funny, but like the fact that I got into buying Bitcoin and crypto, being someone who was actively going to San Francisco since 2010, 11, we were able to get to know about Bitcoin very early, and we invested in 2013. But I actually sold all my Bitcoin in 17 and then took positions later, but nothing significant to what we had in 17. But 17 was a great exit for us from a game company perspective as well as crypto. Anyway, to cut all of this short, I also had moments where people were pitching NFTs to me, and I hadn't had the time. I didn't have the time because we were building the first studio for Revolving Games. People would say, "Hey, do you know about NFTs and games and ownership?" And I would say, "Shut up! What the fuck is it?" Excuse my language here, but I was telling like Animoca, one of their VPs was an old friend of mine. We did a game with them in 2013 and called Astro Boy Flight. So he called me up. He's like, you should work with us. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. Anyway, when I had time and I explored, I was like, this is insane. But it was a very important thing that because we had seen different type of like financial cycles, dabbled in crypto, built a gaming company, kind of all coming together with Web3 and where Revolving Games is. I really felt that if we're getting into this, we have to have a very long-term vision. There's no winning immediately. We might get lucky. A lot of people got lucky last cycle. This time it's getting lucky is getting harder because the market is maturing. So the first thing for a gaming company and a crypto company is you got to know how to survive. And if you can survive, then you can build. And when you build, you'll make mistakes and then you have to survive again. Eventually, everybody would know you. And obviously, there are other aspects to being successful, like actual product, actual team, execution skills, fundraising. They all have to collectively come together. And yeah, so we decided, okay, we're going to have a 10-year vision. We're going to build a brand and we're going to be the supercell of Web3. What that really means is in 2010, 11, people thought it's a joke that mobile games are going to be big. One of our investors literally invested a large amount of money in us. As an angel, it's people typically don't do those kind of angel checks. Anyway, he's the founder of Rockstar, built Grand Theft Auto and Red Dead Redemption, and he said that when we were talking about GTA on mobile, we were laughing. We're like, who's going to use this device? And what's crazy is that he's like, we were so goddamn wrong. And the company that proved everybody wrong on mobile was Supercell. So we want to do that. But we know the market is brutal. Crypto is Wild West, and survival is the first step, and then execution is the second. And sometimes you have to do both at the same time, which you've been, I think, fairly successful in doing.
Well, that's pretty fascinating. I mean, I know that you'd initially started as a mobile free to play studio before pivoting to Web3. Was it your experience investing and playing in the space that sort of gave you that push or that aha moment or defining moment to switch or it move towards blockchain?
Yeah, so I started Revolving Games with a very big partner. Legally, we're not allowed to say, but they're one of the largest gaming companies in the world. They gave us $12 million to start. And lucky for us, it was non-dilutive capital. It was a very unique deal, but it was unique because of the talent we had and the execution capability as founders we had. And the gaming industry does work like that. You can do non-dilutive deals based on rev share, and there's a lot of complexities in how you can structure different deals. It's a creative industry, a creative way to do a lot of things on the legal side. Anyway, in a nutshell, we were doing that, but my thesis around the company was we're going to build IP eventually, but we want to do it in one of the biggest genres that we feel is extremely a powerful business if you are able to execute and scale that in genre, which is strategy games. But also the team I had, and at the time, as brothers and co-founders, we were obsessed with the genre as well. So there was a lot of things that just came together. And yeah, that's really how we started. And the pivot was primarily again, because we need like 12 million is not a big budget for the game we were building. So it ended up being a little challenging on scaling and building IP. So we did an IP deal as well. Not allowed to say the IP, but the IP wasn't really bringing the user acquisition cost to the point we wanted it to be. So in a nutshell, we realized like when blockchain game like NFTs were basically scaling up and they were building large communities around it, we realized that is a much better way to start our journey. And the pivot was very, very natural. We did partner with a few folks in between Web3, who taught us a lot. And I don't know how well they're doing now, but we learned a lot during our early days, and then we started just building our games. But the goal was to just build freaking amazing games. Bringing the blockchain layers, ownership will be very different genre-wise, and we'll figure that out. And why we had that thesis was because in free-to-play games, you never start building the economy first. You go for retention metrics, the fun factor, the slight innovation, and then you say, okay, how do I monetize it? Because if you have someone coming to your shop, you'll figure out how to sell things to them so you can really build a business and revenue. That's really how we thought.
Interesting. And obviously, being retail and gaming, there's a lot of focus on like the end users, and I think even you've emphasized like in the way you approach creating games that the players are not just players, they're not just users, they're shareholders. So I'm curious, like, how does Revolving Games design, the games, the mechanics to enhance gameplay, not just monetization, and how you view players as stakeholders?
I don't necessarily have ever said they're stakeholders. The way we say it is when you spend money in a game, you don't own anything. So I'll explain it in a philosophical way. The digital age has come, and it's been fast tracked by COVID rapidly. The way I think about it is back in the day, we'd be on a podcast in person. I'd fly, you'd fly. Now, everybody listens to this while driving. There's acceptance of that. I have raised a couple of $1 million, and I haven't with some people that I have not even met, and some folks that I haven't like even been on camera with. But then obviously there's references, all of that, but it's just like a voice call and deal's done, right? Obviously we have that credibility. In crypto, actually, it's even worse. Like people raise money on PFPs and Twitter. Having said all of that, we believe that gaming NFTs should be tradable. They have their own value, and each genre will have its own value, and people can speculate, they can trade, or they can just own it. But in a nutshell, what was really intriguing for me to start with NFTs is the digital world is going to be insanely powerful when these kids of today, growing up from Roblox to Fortnites of the world to the Web3 games that eventually become seamless experiences and fun, these kids will be really desire to own assets and not necessarily make money from them. Play to earn is great. There's elements to that, but I think the thesis and the narrative is changing very fast about that should not be your most important goal because it's not scalable. So that's one thing. And going back to the fact that today, I think if you buy a painting, which is from Picasso, you probably, let's say you can afford it and you have it, you cannot, like, how many people actually come to your place? Like that, people like to go out, there's restaurants, there are bars, people love meeting people there. Not everybody wants a big home to deal with. Everybody's traveling all the time. Travel has become insane. Where you have a friend who's in the morning working remotely in China, the next day he's in like in Singapore, and then he's in Japan, and then he's on the West. So how do you flex digital assets? So I believe like the open seas of the world, though, these will eventually be your wallet will eventually be the Instagram, and that would be your ultimate flex, and that drives all the whale spend and all of that. It's happened already before, but I think it happened too fast, too quick, and we know what happens when things happen too fast. But the reality is gaming will come around this. But if you're building games and products purely for having people to earn money, I think it ends up being something that's not going to be scalable because it becomes a zero sum game, and eventually your user acquisition will get stale and it won't work. And during market cycles, financial crisis, it's just a weird situation you're in. So if the fun is there, there's the whole cycle around it. And the NFT sides of it is just the ownership. This is the feeling of, hey, I own my asset. One element I would add is, if I spend $10,000 in a game, most games do not allow you to even transfer accounts. It's illegal, right? So there's a lot of that is very frustrating. One. Number two, I'll give you a fun stat. We had an RPG game where you collected assets like a card in the game and battled them. It was a battle card RPG. It ran for 12 years, by the way, with 500 users spending about a couple, like $20,000, $30,000 a month. It was just ongoing. We killed it because it was just a headache and various things. But anyway, that game had a black market, which had more trading than our revenue. And we never stopped it because it was just like something on the side. It literally paid for my travel once in a while when I was like traveling. It's like, oh, the bank account has money, let's do something fun, right? And there was just one literal intern working on it, like sending live ops meta data updates. And there was actually one artist that worked on it, and that artist was actually offshore in the Philippines. Anyway, in short, so you need to allow this, and the blockchain allows it, but none of this has to come with the idea of you will make money, because it's not gaming, but just do DeFi. And this is why we made games first, and then we're onboarding blockchain. And I'll get into this later, what our strategy is, why our like arcade, which is Revolving Games token, what makes sense, why it makes sense, and how we did it. But yeah.
Hey everybody, quick thing here. We're excited to announce WAGMI Advisory, your home for all things fundraising, hiring, and partnerships. This is all about supercharging your project with the WAGMI network, consisting of over 20,000 executives, investors, and builders in crypto, all ready to come alongside your project to help it succeed. Get in touch at team@wagmiventures.io to learn more and figure out if WAGMI Advisory is the right fit for your project. Let's get back to the show.
Let's talk about your partners. I know there's some you mentioned you're not legally able to mention, but I think one of the other ones or two are public. But Would like to get some insight.
Yeah, just to give you clarity, the reason why I'm not legally allowed to mention not the partner's name, the IP we worked on. It, yeah, when you don't bring a big IP's game to market, it impacts the IP, right? So legally, we were not allowed to say their name because then you end up saying the IP. It was like we're like, okay, it's okay. I love to say it because it was quite amazing and fascinating what we were working on. But yeah, are you talking about any specific partners you want to know about?
Yeah, yeah.
Anything?
We're
Yeah.
gonna was gonna ask around your partnership with Gala Games and NBC Universal for a Battlestar Galactica, the 4X strategy MMO, which was a pretty bold move. And wanted to ask how the collaboration came about, what unique crypto or blockchain elements you were able to integrate to make the game stand out.
So that partnership does not exist anymore. Just FYI, but it was a great relationship in terms of learning a lot. Gala was one of the first movers. I don't follow a lot what they're doing, to be very fair. Our partnership came on the IP side with Star Galactica, but the again going back to what I said earlier, the IP side. So Gala enforced like, hey, let's try this. Again, we're like, oh shit, we're working with IP again that we don't own. We're not creating, but we were learning a lot from Gala at the time. There was a lot of data, there was a lot of knowledge that they had. Credit to them for moving early, and we basically parted ways with them because I believe Gala scaled very fast, and scaling really very fast for any team it can be also challenging. So the partnership wasn't working on both sides, so we parted ways. And we built our own game, built our own IP, which did $2 million in 1 month after launch, and it's not even a full scale launch. The game's called War of Nova. It's just looking incredible, and the numbers are very, I'd say, exciting for us from a KPI purely perspective from even Web 2. So we have about 40% spend coming from Web 2 right now.
Wow, that's pretty fascinating. And yeah, no, I'm sure that was one of the steps in your journey to get Revolving Games to where it is now.
Absolutely. It was a partnership that taught us many things, fast tracked us. 1 day in crypto is like a month in real life. And we live by that. So we learned much. We had options of raising capital from various VCs. We optimized from who we can learn more, who can help us fast track. And that is always the mentality founders should have. I recommend, I've seen that in Silicon Valley. It's all about speed, and failing it comes with it. But if you can learn fast and fail fast and move fast, that is what makes you or breaks you. But persistence is king, as I say often to my community. So we're persistent and we've been growing since then, and it's been incredible.
Great insight there. And that's scaling. Like, how do you design your onboarding experiences to bridge the gap with the folks who you have on the Web2 side and the Web3 side, so that players don't feel overwhelmed by a lot of the crypto blockchain mechanics or processes? Like,
The answer is in your question, to be honest. It is literally crypto folks are tuned to very complex UIs. So when you make something simple, it's like a walk in the park for them. Whereas Web2 folks or your general audience of gaming, they purely want the best UX, right? And our goal is always we run a lot of focus groups internally to test. So we typically first make the game for D1 retention. So we test metrics. We often launch the game where we've made only 3 days of gameplay and tested under various names in a different geography. Most of the geographies are where people understand modern games, but they're not like, people don't just come across our IP randomly, right? So far, so good. none of our games have been leaked in test marketing. But this is a strategy a lot of game companies follow. A lot of them have shell companies, they launch games under that. The idea is no monetization, just the core loop and how people engage. It's all run by data analytics. One thing that I found us to have a huge advantage on was this, literally. And I love your question because of that, because people, when I played Web3 games initially, I was like, A, is this a game? And B, man, if you believe it or not, we spend so much time in reducing, like, if you have 5 steps to onboarding, to bring it to 3, analyzing data over and over again, spending thousands of dollars, in some cases, hundreds of thousands of dollars to optimize onboarding and making it like improving 1% in retention just to the game we don't have to kill and it can be profitable. But just to give you context, 6% D30 retention and 7% D30 can be impactful to the point where a game is profitable and not profitable, right? So all of this is so important. And when I saw Web3 games, I was like, oh my God, we can really win. The production cycles for us was 4.5 years and 3.5 years for both games that we first took our big step in. So it had to take a while for us to launch the games. But I guess, does this answer your question?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, it was really just trying to get a sense of like how you guys think about it and how you approach it. Because that abstraction is really where you see like scale continuing to happen on the Web3 front. But yeah, I think you touched on the various points and how you approach it today. I'd probably want to like double down on a different side of things and say, what technical hurdles have you encountered in deploying games? I think one of the more popular ones is Skyborn Legacy. And so what technical hurdles deploying it on Polygon did you encounter, and how was your stack able to address these challenges?
Let me take a step back. So a couple of things. A lot of the data or the questions might be circled around our initial raise in 21, and the market changed considerably after that. So Polygon is a close partner. Sandeep and Shreya. Sandeep now is back CEO, and it was their head of investments. They're close to us, and they've backed us through the bear market and currently, but we are not on Polygon. Arcade is actually its own roll-up chain now. We have L1 tech, but I realized that I'm trying to build too much, and I took a step back and ended up doing a partnership with Arbitrum to do L3. I would call it an L2. We have our own node network. The reason for that is we want to enhance the infra over time, and the idea was when we have our own products launching, this makes sense. Skyborn hasn't been launched. It's been tested in various markets very privately. But our first game was actually one of Skyborn's offshoot games called Wildlands, or Skyborn Genesis, that actually built our NFT community. We also launched that in Arbitrum initially. We did announce Polygon, but we had to pivot. And to your question, there were some issues that were problematic, and I don't know if it was our side or their side, but it was like, okay, let's just run with what we can launch the game with. Timelines can matter, right? I don't think their like integration problems can happen on either side. Now, when it comes to technical issues, we keep seeing those. I'm not the best guy to answer that because I just ask, what's the problem? And did you find a solution? I have a few strategies from a leadership perspective where I'm like, yeah, be quick on the problem, but I want to hear the solution because I'm obviously not the CTO who's trying to solve it. And on the other hand, I often say to my team, if I'm supposed to make a decision on these things, then if I make it, then you just make it work better, right? So that really resonates with my team and it works well for us. But in general, the problems we've seen in Web3 are just the experience of buying assets and this whole bridging and fragmentation of liquidity and this hype around various like chains and communities, and it's hard, right? It's hard to like today X chain is the sexiest and tomorrow Y chain is the sexiest, right? So it keeps becoming like, where do people make money? So what we said is, hey, let's just push all of this aside, make great games. And War of Noah was the first game that I am so proud of that said, hey, the only thing that we'll allow is pay in crypto, and we'll make a store. You can make payments on mobile and whatever is allowed through the app stores. And that was the only thing, because we wanted to know, are you having fun playing the game? Then we'll slowly onboard ownership of assets, bring things on chain. All of that will happen after we know do you goddamn enjoy the game? How's the retention? Are you spending only because there's Web3 incentive, airdrop? Or are you going to spend otherwise as well? And those are the things we want to get answered first, because that's the only way you'll truly be able to succeed and scale the game. And those answers were yes and yes. This is from the community and the revenue we generated and the data we saw around retention.
It's pretty fascinating to hear how you quickly evolve and iterate. Obviously, you've also survived through a number of cycles.
You don't even want to know.
Yeah, and technical stack, because here I'm thinking, all right, it's Polygon, you're already L3 and Arbitrum, and I think your approach is really critical here, because the whole idea about the tech is to not make it feel, clunky or complex, and just play the game, enjoy the game. We'll deal with the back end. At the end of the day, the value is in the game, and if they're seeing the value, you'll automatically get that user acquisition and retention.
The ethos of Web 2, well, I hate calling Web 2 Web 3. I actually tweeted the other day, there's so much fraud in Web 3 right now that we are actually Web 4. So I said, yeah, we claim to be Web 4, screw it. But the ethos of free to play was get a user in and give them that parallel road of running free and keep running. But obviously the spenders have run faster, and the design always supports them in various ways. It's how it is. People in Web 2 also shouted, hey, this is pay to win. Go read reviews. Eventually, people got used to it. Because how the hell do I make a $23 million game and not generate revenue? Bro, you cannot have fun for free. That's not how the world works, right? How do I get payback, right? How do I raise money? It doesn't work that way. I remember, I'm not going to name because I don't want to be negative on any company, and some of them are truly trying to innovate in various ways. But I remember a lot of games were like, a few fun things, right? Everybody's like, oh, this game in Web 3 is incredible. It's killing it. And I was like, can I play it? No, you have to buy an NFT and then you get access. I'm like, what the hell? Like gated access? I don't know. How are they going to scale up? This is just going to crash. And that's what happened. Everybody was like, you're crazy to say that. No, this is the future. And I really believe maybe I'm crazy. So that's that. And then the fact that people don't understand any form of standard user acquisition. But I also think platforms are very close to crypto before, right? Mobile, general countries as well, payment. So all of that has improved to allow us to say, hey, you can actually download the game on mobile and just play it for free. So that is really key. today. But like I said in the start, that 10-year horizon had that. Like, I did not know when mobile will allow mobile stores. Will Apple actually lose the case against Epic Games? But but we all knew it's going to happen. Apple cannot charge 30% for the rest of their goddamn our lives. It's impossible. So all those things are coming together, and that obviously allows people to do bigger, greater things. I remember in free to play, there was no model as well for acquisition. Folks' biggest problem was how will they make money on mobile? They crushed it by selling our data. So they solved it by selling effectively how to target. And then when Apple cracked down on privacy, it killed Facebook, but algorithms have improved to target users again. So all of this is just improved. Like, people don't even understand MMPs, or like they don't even understand there's a company called Adjust that you can track your user acquisition spend and how things happen. And a lot of founders I speak to, they don't even know about that. And you're like, okay, they can't even track if they spend $10, what comes back to them as their ROI, what the LTV is, what the UA spend is. So all of that is maturing in crypto now. But we saw that mature in 2012, 2013. And yeah, before even Web 2, during the Zynga days and Facebook days, UA was literally building community. So we feel strongly like I am in the weeds with my community, or what they call the trenches. I've been there building the community, and our community is, I don't want to, we still have to launch our token, which is our main chain token, but I would say our community is hands down one of the best communities in the world right now. And they are extreme. Like, we launched one game, which is our casual IP, and it's at $100 million FTV right now. And it's the only game token launched in 24, 25 that is above its launched FTV. And here's the crazy part: only the community owns it, and they've kept it up because of the fact that they love the IP and they believe the IP is growing.
Yeah, no, that definitely is key insights that you continue to share there. I love how you're dropping all these germs. I will say is you guys have sort of been almost like a fresh mover in this space, and so you've been able to see firsthand how you manage all through cycles, through different tech stacks, through the understanding the user journey and bettering that journey in how we bring crypto to mass adoption. And so I wonder, what does the next 5 or maybe even 3 years look like for Revolving Games? Like, how do you envision your role in shaping the broader gaming industry over the next few years?
Got it. I think I want to prove the fact that gaming and Web3 is a thing. It's like people last year lost interest. I think it's coming back. And the way to do it was just with product, not tweeting every day, although I do. But it is really building product, and it is truly, essentially, the way I saw it is the point where Web 2 games on Mobile One was when Clash of Clans scaled. Pre-Clash of Clans, nobody invested in games. Like, there was a handful of investors. And when that point came, it was just like a gold rush. A lot of game companies failed as well after that. But then a lot of giants were built. We were talking about Supercell, which is a $10 billion company, super profitable. It's probably more now. You have MiniClip, which is a web gaming company, pivoted to mobile. It's privately owned now, but it's multiple billions for sure now. You have King.com, which was public and got acquired by, I think, for 5 billion. You have Scopely. Scopely was actually smaller than us when we started working with us. Back in 2012, it was acquired for $5.9 billion, and now it's probably worth tens of billion after Monopoly Go. So all of those companies grew in front of us, and we've seen that. So we want to be one of the leaders who do that. By the way, none of these companies were successful right off the gate. Supercell's story is told as overnight success. They were not. That team that started Supercell worked at Digital Chocolate for 7 years. And I'll come to team and retention later, and if you have questions around that, but it's really, really important to have a great team that synergizes with each other and has worked and made multiple mistakes together. And so games really requires that. It's like when in the movie industry, when some creative directors, sorry, a director, a producer, and some actors have worked together, they synergize slightly better. So a lot of those things really are, I'd say, required. But yeah, I don't want to go in different directions. In a nutshell, we truly feel just teaching people that fun games can survive, and then you bring in the other hooks is important. The other is it's our Trojan horse strategy where there's a lot of noise around different chains, gaming, blah, 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 ecosystem. I don't care about that noise. My product wins. What I love is when we launched Hatch, our token, it rocketed because of its own speculative value, whatever. The community showed its power, so we built a great community, but our gaming metrics were solid because this community likes gaming, and we really truly built fun games. So our noise came through not paying influencers to talk about us and our token launch or all of it's small accounts like with 300 followers, 200 followers, people in Africa, people in Turkey, people in Vietnam who are obviously part of the crypto community but are just like, wow, like I love this tweet from this guy who's one of our most active community members now. He couple of months ago, I wrote that we spent $23 million on War of Nova. I don't know why I tweeted that. What was the context? I don't remember that. But he trolled me like, yeah, fuck. Like another scammer writing scammy shit. And this guy is one of the most active guys, and he literally said I laughed when he said that, and oh my god, I played the game and I don't know how they made it in 23 mil because the game I can compare it to is Eve Online, and that's hundreds of millions of dollars. And I am addicted, and now he's built his own guild and he's grown our community in Africa, and it's been amazing to see. And I retweet some of these guys all the time because I love seeing these accounts talk about us. So that is how we're really trying to dominate and teach rather than pay someone who has 50,000 followers to read about us. And honestly speaking, I have so much data now. There's zero conversion of any influencer marketing. When I say zero, it's practically zero. We generated about $18 million this year through various NFT, blah, blah, blah sales. All the people that we felt are like the most important people on crypto Twitter had less than $100,000 in sales when it came to that. Everything was organic and everything was built through community and trust. And I would credit our team, some of the key players in our community that like emphasize on trusting us, and then me going crazy because I take 24/7 therapy now because I'm always in the trenches with my community. And I don't think that's sustainable, but I try to do as much as I can for now. And we'll see later.
Well, outside of gaming, and this is like our signature questions here, outside of gaming in crypto, like what else excites you? What else in the future of everything that is exploding in 2025 in crypto land do you feel really bullish about?
So if you're talking about specifically crypto land, I think the president, given like we're both based in the US, I think is one of the most bullish signs. There are pros and cons to some of the things they've done, but it's purely like the agenda of now seeing countries, right, being interested and involved in building reserves around it. That's that's a top, like, not a top signal, but sorry, let me rephrase. That's a signal of saying, hey, this shit is here to stay. And I feel like I haven't had, like, to be very honest, I haven't had the time to say, hey, this blockchain is cutting edge. I have not had the time. And I'm a big fan of some of the most important, like how ETH came into being and how it allowed dApps and all of that, how what the ethos was, what the vision was, right? Whether it's been able to implement its vision or not, it's yet to be seen. One of the Pakistani founders that I met, and he was actually in college with my brother, was building on top of Bitcoin called stacks. Things like that really excite me and are innovative, right? With what I'm still like curious. I've not had the time and deep diving on what World Liberty Finance is doing. That looks very intriguing. I'm not very actively investing right now. I only invest my time because I did some investments and market's been very shaky. I don't even look at them. In a nutshell, what I'm excited about is Bitcoin is really, truly a thing. And it will sprout, and it's already been sprouting, like this whole wave of payments, ownership, ledgers, blockchain. And then eventually, how Amazon grew from a bookstore to much, much bigger vision to actually being profitable, to Jeff Bezos being laughed at even on Comedy Central, I believe. I think it was on Saturday Night Live when he said, how do you raise money? I don't know. It was really, you must have seen the clip. And to being someone who delivered at a different level, to Mustang, hey, SpaceX is a thing, right? 10 years ago, you laughed, what the fuck? BNB. So these things are going to happen in various ways in crypto because blockchain and Bitcoin have now, they're here to stay forever and impact the world. So that is, and to me, is very cool and sexy. And I want to be the leader in gaming. I always say number one or nothing.
Yeah, no, I love your passion about the project and how you've managed it these several years. And I say that because I've been in the industry, so I've seen a lot of projects come and go. And of course, some of them didn't matter how strong the fundamentals were. If the cycle was not supportive, it didn't survive. Hats off and kudos to you there.
Yeah, thank you. I'll tell you a few things here that you say. It's just for like if any young founders are listening to me, although I don't consider myself very old. I think we're the same age, so yeah, or maybe you're
You're not
like a
Gen
year
Z,
older.
but you're young.
Yeah. So I'll say one thing. Man, we've seen some really tough times. I've had board meetings where I was told to lay off people, and I said, no, I'm not. And I didn't. And I was down to like 20 days of funds left. It was 21. We made it and did not lay off people. I've had meetings during that time where I told my team to take a 50% pay cut. They did. And they were motivated. I read this in a book where Ben Horowitz said that we had 3 months of runway left, and we told the team either we make it or break it, and motivated them. And I was talking to a founder the other day, and he's like, we've had some troubled times, and I don't tell my team. I was like, bro, just be transparent with your team. If it's a real team, which I'm sure you've built, they've been together for a while, they will work harder. Because if they believe in your vision, they're gonna do everything. And data proves that. So we saw that in 21, man. So why we saw that is we raised capital and the market was so crazy. I could have raised any amount. We said, let's be prudent. Let's raise at this valuation. and execute on this plan and scale the team. So we scaled rapidly, started our next round, got a term sheet from Terra Luna for 40 million. And 2 days later, Luna went to zero. I've seen that, right? I've seen closing a deal with Sam Bankman's family office and FTX collapse. So I was like, what, am I the bad luck for these guys? Anyway, I'm joking about that. But the reality is, I've seen the worst. And so, battle hardened, don't give a shit, just be persistent. There are times when it gets really tough and you question yourself. It could be multiple times in a day, and the highs and lows of crypto are insane. So I do recommend having a therapist or just chat GPT as your best friend where you take out your anger as well. But really, truly, persistence is king. And I personally hate it. I don't know if people do it for legal reasons. I haven't really bothered with it, but honestly speaking, like arcade is a project, let's say, right? But really, you should have you, it like it, the core fundamental should be it's a company. You should at least have that in the psyche, call it a project or whatever, right? Yeah, like for me, Revolving Games is a company. We are building games, and that is it. The blockchain side, I mean, centralization, that's great, but your product has to be something that you really value in the team. And then you have the passion and the persistence and the thing comes and leading from the front. I remember when I moved to San Francisco, I was like growing up in Asia and Pakistan, it's a hot climate. You wake up late and you're used to it. And I was like, wow, how do people wake up at 5 a.m.? And when I moved to San Francisco and started hiring some of the best people I've ever met in our industry, I had to wake up at 5 a.m. because if I'm not the smartest person in the room, I'm never aiming to be the smartest guy in the room in our company. But I want to be at my smartest level every day. And when I am not, I always wonder why these guys work for me. So SF taught me that culture. You have to be at your A game. It's not your Lamborghini that speaks, it's your brain and your mind and your vision that people respect. And crypto sadly does not have that.
Oh, well, no, it really depends on what pockets of crypto you're talking about. And,
Yeah, yeah. I am talking about crypto Twitter.
but we certainly have, but we certainly have more, certainly more inclined to showing off Lamborghinis than the rest of tech or Silicon Valley or Web2 does. So
I remember there's a story where Google went IPO and one of their like senior VPs went with a baseball bat in the office and said, "Hey, tomorrow all of you can buy Lambos. I better not see one outside because I'm gonna bash it." This company wasn't built on a culture of money, it was built on passion. Something along those lines. I'm not quoting the exact words, but it was literally that. I was literally commenting earlier before our podcast was money brings you happiness, but not forever. So you should strive for it. But money definitely does not make you a better person, does not give you self esteem, and might give you some shallow form of confidence. And that's my firm belief. And the persistence of being better and, freedom is arguable because as we age, we have to be respectful of our schedule, what we eat, your energy levels. You have to really manage all of that. So, how's that true freedom with money, right? There's always like a philosophical debate on these things. But yeah.
yeah, no, you definitely shared a lot of philosophical notes and gems with us today. So, in addition to the insights on RG on Revolving Games, and we really appreciate that, man. So, thank you for coming on the show. We'll certainly stay close and look forward to the big things that are coming out later this year. Games coming out of testnet. We're all excited about that. Keep us informed when they publish.
Yeah, man. I mean, right now, I just want everybody to play our games, understand that we're building quality, and follow. Everything is very early in Web3. and the growth will be tremendous for those who focus on this. And I love talking about the philosophy and the long-term vision because I really want passionate people to be part of our community, not just people who come in who are like, hey, how do we get rich? You can do that. We've converted a lot of people who trade our assets. Like our NFT was free, it trades at 1 ETH. There are a bunch of guys, I don't want to throw numbers out there, who've made life-changing money. I don't like talking about that. I like talking about our ethos, our philosophy, our long-term vision, and be part of our community and see where it goes. And our investors have all invested on our passion. And one going away line I'd say for founders, if they're speaking, I believe you have a strong community in that sense for who or community of listeners, is if you're early, no one invests in your project plan. Nobody gives a shit. They only give a shit about what you want to do, why, what's your journey to achieving that? Why are you building that? And how driven are you? I don't think anyone looks at the slide decks anymore in that depth. There's always diligence, that'll always happen. But it is your passion that closes checks. We used to perfect our deck. The other day, one of the investors asked me, hey, can you send me your data room? Do you just raise more capital? I didn't send our data room because we send updates to our key investors and they have that and they know what we're doing. And we send an update with KPIs and our projections. And that's it. We're not like updating everything because the most important thing is what you're building and what's the future and where you're at and the passion that drives all that vision, especially when you're early.
Very true. Very true. And I think that's when real ingenuity comes in, when you're focused on the build and not like the money or the reward that comes out of it, or the material reward that comes out of it.
Everyone knows eventually the money comes. So but have to be long term. But yeah, sorry. I talk a lot.
We're happy to have you like just share here. So this is good. This is
Awesome,
good.
man.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, and we'll be in touch. Cheers. Have a great one.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the episode, go ahead and give us a good 5-star rating and subscribe wherever you're getting your podcasts so you can get all the latest conversations from the most interesting founders, builders, and investors from across the world. Thanks so much and have a good one.